So I was minding my own business, playing on a busy highway as I usually do when I get bored on a weekday, but get this, I get hit by a car. What are the odds of that? And I get dragged to the hospital, but because I live in America, my house and dog were taken as collateral. Next thing I know, the doctor tells me I have a 3% chance at living, and the mandatory surgery is, mandatory, hence, mandatory surgery. And I think to myself, man, those are some good odds. So I take the gamble and I roll a 4-star Seth, and my funeral is this weekend. Now, I gotta preface this by saying, this isn't a vent video about bad summons. In fact, my summons have been so good, I had Kaga himself fly down all the way from Japan IS, or I guess in this scenario would be Barwick Saga, Japan, because, well, they fired him, and came to personally congratulate me on how good my summons are. Unfortunately, I didn't know Japanese. That being said, summons aren't always going to be good, especially with how bloated the pool is. Man, isn't that, for every time somebody mentioned the bloated pool, I'd have 20 billion nickels and I wouldn't have to listen to this YouTuber because I could just, live on my private mansion and, I don't know, gamble in some other thing. But yeah, bloat, it's certainly a thing that exists in the game, whether it's in 3-star, 4-star rarity, or 5-star rarity. And this mostly applies to the demotes anyway, because most 5-stars are pretty much like seasonals where they don't exist in the normal pool, even if they came from Engage, which doesn't really make sense, although I guess they need to pad it sometimes with certain effects if they want to sell the banner. But from what I understood, a lot of the time, the reason a lot of these 5-stars were so limited and they had these like exclusive whatever and it was always just a lord was because they were running out of characters. Like if you look at Awakening, it's like fake, but no, they'll put it on any sort of fuck. It doesn't matter what kind of game they came from. It could come from Thracia, and God forbid they actually put any characters from that game in. But yeah, no, most of the 5-stars are pretty much just limited or locked out of the pool, which I'll get into a bit more in a bit. But no matter how you slice it, new heroes banners are more or less just seasonal at this point because, they're both limited and they have the same rarity. But yeah, they sure love keeping the 4-star pool full of shit. Even if the 5-stars are bad at time, they'll just remove them anyway. And normally I wouldn't be complaining about something like this because, I'm always such a happy, positive YouTuber with no complaints whatsoever, and I'm always putting out the most positive, happy content of all time. And theoretically, it should be easy to get these units because they're a demote. And mathematically too, because, that's how math works. But considering how much bloat there is in the demote pool, I'd imagine just trying to build up any sort of character that you really want to that isn't on a focus is just going to be incredibly difficult. Especially for the ones that don't even have a summoning focus, like Lapis. They just get thrown into the pool. And that's on top of the fact that they already suck massive chode. You have the 5-star, which has a really good PRF, and it have, 50 bajillion effects and Spectrum 20 and whatever. And what do you have as instant demote the fuckhead? Reversal blade and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And sometimes their stats are good, so that's nice. But then you remember every 5-star gets 195 BSC in their weapon at this point. And whatever mathematical, hypothetical, theoretical crap there is, I swear it is so much easier to get a 5-star focus than it is to just get any sort of 3-star and 4-star you're looking for. And usually they're all the same stat line copy-pasted every time anyway, so it's just a different coat of paint. Because Lapis, Inigo, and Kagetsu sure are different units, I believe, outside of name, of course, and game, and yeah. But actually, Kagetsu is the strongest of the 3 because his stat line is so much better. And you know what? You're right. He is good. But unfortunately, the bubonic plague wiped out millions of people in Europe. Now, I will say for what it's worth, even adding all these units to the demote pool, and even though it does bloat it a bit, they still add plenty of skills that makes them so much more accessible, and it allows for more bridging, which is really nice. Kagetsu came with no follow-up, Fi came with aerobatics, and Mavir came with seal attack. Actually, what the fuck is this shit? Side tangent. GHBs are probably the best accessible heroes we got, and usually they're treated well. Not always, of course, because sometimes you'll get generic Lance Slow McGee that doesn't really do anything but has an okay inheritable Lance or whatever, but usually they'll have some bridge fodder. And for people that do actually like them, it is easier to at least merge them up. And there's definitely fans of these characters. So chances are, if you really want your unit to be added to a really accessible pool, you may as well make it the Grail shop. It also helps that they're just incredibly easy to max out on merges and flowers. And while modern units don't really need merges, demotes suck shit anyway, and they pretty much just hinge on their accessibility. And you know what the worst part is? It's not like these are nobodies half the time either. People actually like a lot of these characters, sometimes even more than the 5-star. In fact, some people will probably drop prostitution level prices on these characters, so at the very least, if you're gonna make them shit, they should be able to pop out of my phone and suck my cock. Removing demotes doesn't necessarily solve the the issue either. Well, I mean, I guess in a literal sense it would, because there's less of a chance you'll end up getting an Azama than you would a Dwyer, but that doesn't change the fact that someone is going to be a fan of said character, and, you know, having it be easily accessible like that for them, you know, despite all the bloat, is going to be very important to them. You know, like Norman the Archer, who, nobody actually really fucking likes. He got -1 votes in CYO8. Somebody retracted a vote that they didn't even vote for. This guy fucking sucks. And this one might be the more controversial point, even if all the other shit I was saying was controversial, but I don't think limiting some of these 5 stars is the biggest problem, and that's just only because of the sheer amount of times they continue to rerun these units anyway. You know, they're guaranteed to get on a legendary, a remix, a focus, a revival, or whatever. Although sparks are only free on new hero banners anyway, and that just becomes a whole debate of give me more free shit situation than an actual issue with the gacha, although people might find it to be an issue anyway. But it also wouldn't hurt to have any of the banners organized and the summoning screen, because it's all bloated up like a Sonic photo on DeviantArt. They just spam it like crazy. Do you know how bloated it is outside of summoning too? You have to go into these summoning banners with all this bloat anyway, and then when you get out, it looks like a DeviantArt homepage. There's so much bloat. And you know, I've only been complaining for whatever amount of time this video is at, but I will say they have done plenty of stuff to improve the experience with summoning. You know, giving out tickets and enough orbs to allow us to pick pretty much any unit we want, assuming we reach the spark, but they give us around 300 orbs a month anyway, so it's not too difficult to reach spark on every new hero's banner. And even though with the seasonal and legendary and mythic banners not being sparkable, a lot of the new hero banners tend to have a lot of high quality stuff too. That's also on top of focus charges, so if you keep getting pity broken, then it becomes less of an issue. Banes getting removed on a single merge, trait fruits if you just want to get a certain IV preference, guaranteed summons, celestial stones for other free goodies, a bunch of free summons each month, and if you're really lucky, you'll get some free 5-star summons along the way, and the app will start sucking you off like you're hot shit for doing that. Whoa, you got a 5-star hero. Wanna rate our game? And this would be the point where I'd say, no, I don't really want to rate your game, but I have Kaga breathing down my neck, so I guess I will. That being said, I think there's still plenty of stuff they could do to streamline the summoning process, and this is some stuff that I didn't really bring up earlier because I didn't really care enough. I didn't really know where to fit it in the script, but I can still definitely fit it here. For starters, if I'm going to summon a lot of times anyway, especially for 40 summons a pop on a banner, then I would at least like it a bit more streamlined in the sense where it takes less time to just summon everything, maybe some sort of instant 5-pull thing if I want to skip the animations and text, because to be quite honest, I don't want to hear Hannah talk about her life story when I just want to send her home for feathers anyway. Also, some sort of banner organization or menu effect that you could add to the game, so that way getting through and scrolling down through all the available options is less of a tedious effort. And while it's not difficult to press a button several times to get to a banner that you specifically want, I think just adding the little things makes the experience go a long way. Also, some sort of organization system to hunt down specific demotes would be great, because I guarantee you there's a lot of demotes in the regular pool that people would love to build, but unfortunately get cockblocked by Azama the Cockblocker. Maybe add some sort of rate up on demotes from games that are on focus banners. You know, for example, if it's an engaged focus banner, then ETI copies on colorless are more likely to show up, but you know, you'll still end up with 20 copies of Lucius anyway, so you could probably go fuck yourself. You could also bring back those 4-star focus banners that nobody's gonna summon on anyway, but honestly, I prefer my rate up on demotes much more than anything else, and there's probably other stuff that I didn't mention, but there's stuff that can already be done, so I think that in and itself it's already important. I'm sure people have plenty of other ideas that can make it go way more smoothly, but at the end of the day, it's FEH and IS, and I don't really know how much they care, but I don't know, they could easily do something to make the experience a lot more worthwhile. Either that, or we could just eat shit. Here's your 3-star Azama, you dumb fuck.